Don't fly too close. You might get burned. Kid Icarus, today on.
I was going to sing a song.
Get a copyright strike. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Press B to Cancel, your favorite retro podcast, at least for the next 10 to 12 minutes. I am Sick Jake. I'm your host this week, but I'm joined, not alone. No, I'm joined by Chard Monk. How you doing this week, Chard?
Doing all right, man. We are deep in the threshes and thralls of purchasing this home. So as you can tell within my eyes, I'm dead inside.
Yeah.
But we're working on it.
When you're dead inside, you know you're a homeowner. That's how that works, right?
That's
You give me lots to look forward to, as we're both buying houses in the middle at the moment, and it's been rough, to say the least.
Yes.
So this is a pre-recorded episode, and that's exactly why we're doing a few of these pre-recorded episodes, is that Chard and I are both moving at separate times, plus everybody's freaking busy during the year, so hopefully this helps fill out a couple Fridays. But the game we're talking about, though, is one that we've been trying to do for a while. We've just been so busy.
Yeah.
But it's a game that, Chard, you played it recently, last year.
About a year ago, yeah.
About a year ago.
To Jake's point, we were trying to, I was in the middle of finishing it up, and we were like, let's just throw this together real quick. This will be a nice, talk about it since it's still fresh in our minds. And it's not very fresh anymore, but we still really wanted to talk about this game. So here's going to be a year in reflection and a year retrospect.
Yes, because we've been doing nothing but playing rounds of Kid Icarus again and again, because the game is so awesome. It is. So here's the thing with Kid Icarus. It came out in 1986. I don't remember if it was Black Box NES game, but it was very close. It's one of the earlier titles of the system. It's the same engine as Metroid.
But I think it's like a gray box, but it still has the same. It has the same artwork as the Mario and the Metroid, where it's like
that pixelated sprites.
Sideways. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was definitely early. So same engine as Metroid, which I didn't realize until we was looking up this episode. But it couldn't be more different. Whereas Metroid's this sprawling labyrinth and maze, which you can take any way you want, any direction you want to go. A lot of exploration. This game is more of a classic NES game, right? It's I was going to say a side scroller, but not at first. It's not at first a side scroller. Yeah. It's definitely a platforming game for sure, and it starts out as how do you even describe the first level, Chard?
I'd say like a vertical climb through platforming. But there's some really clever aspects built into this game that I didn't realize as a kid until probably way later. That the screen is a wraparound, and they utilize that as you're climbing up this, tower, these towers, because I think there's like 3 of them that you start out with. I was always like, I can't go any further. There's like this big black wall here. Like I don't.
Like a pillar.
You think the game is in a box, right? Yeah, exactly. Or the game's in a box, so your brain's just like, I can't walk anymore, and then you find out you can go through it and you'll appear on the other side. So there's a lot of wraparound tricks throughout the game that I did not realize were in it when I was younger, and it took me a while to learn that trick. And once I figured it out, I was like, oh, you can progress through this game. You're not just stuck at the bottom of the first level.
In a lot of ways, it reminds me of like arcade games from the 80s, like Pac-Man, for example, right? Where the wraparound screen, the wraparound levels is very common for arcade games. Not so much for Nintendo, but it's neat to see they have that. But yeah, the opening stage, which is probably to me one of the hardest stages in the damn game, is the opening, where you have to climb up this shaft. And what makes it difficult is the further you go up, the less platforms you have to stand on. And if you fall, if you miss a jump and hit the bottom of the screen, you die. You die real quick.
Yep. There's no fallback. It is an instant kill. If you progress too high and you fall, you're done.
And how many lives do you get in this game, Chard?
As many as I want. There's actually, as far as I remember, there's infinite. Quote me if I'm wrong. It's been a year. I could have sworn that I could keep going. It just put me at the bottom of the level every time I died.
No lives, but infinite continues. But
that's what I was thinking. There was never a point where I was like, I started all the way at the beginning, because I'm pretty sure that had that been the case in this game, I would not have finished it because it is brutal for at least the first 3 levels of this game.
Yeah, the first 3 stages of this vertical climb, and when I first played this game as a kid, I never made it past the first set of stages. I didn't realize what this game actually becomes after the first couple of worlds. After you beat the first 3 stages, it becomes quite a bit of a different game for a stage. As you enter a Zelda-style labyrinth, I guess, it's still the same side-scrolling view. Yeah.
Very, very like Link's Adventure like style artwork.
Yeah. Which is like surprising for this kind of game, because up to that point you're Icarus, you're jumping around, you're shooting various enemies, and all of a sudden you're in a labyrinth where you can have a little bit more of a freedom of exploration, move around. And much like Zelda, there's a couple of different items you can collect in a dungeon. How much? So you played it more than I did. How much of a struggle was it getting the map to find your way around?
Oh God, I know, because so the way the game's built, it's this. I think there's like 2 or 3 main stages. So there's one one 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, and then there's like like you said, like a dungeon stage that turns into more of an exploration. The dungeon stages were easily, I think, collectively altogether, were the hardest part of the game. But once you pass the climbing area, it really opens up in like I want to say stage 2, where it's more side scrolling than it is going up. Because there's not the punishment of, I mean, there's pits, but if you fall into a pit, ironically, that's the character's name, in the side scrolling portion, you see it though. You're like, oh, that's a hole in the ground. I'm not going to fall in it. But while you're climbing up this tower and you misstep, like you said, you die because you fell down into the thing. So I'm still trying to understand why a dude that has wings can fall and die in a pit. Now, we will obviously explain that a little bit later, because there is a way around that, and that's the upgrades that you get while you're playing. But when you're in the dungeon, you have to find the map. You have to find you rescue little angel warriors, essentially, that you free, and then they come and help you in the boss fight of that dungeon. So however many you rescue, they will be there to support you to help beat whatever bosses you are. And the boss fights they're not tedious. I mean, they're tedious. They're not the worst things in the world. I honestly, the first 3 levels, to my knowledge and my remembrance of this, besides the stupid Eggplant Wizards, the first 3 levels are the hardest thing in this game. And then you get into the dungeons that become fairly difficult, but it's it's the goddamn Eggplant Wizards are the absolute worst thing in this game. Yep.
I'm on mute. So the dungeons are definitely tricky. And in the dungeons, for the most part, the enemies are very much similar to the vertical scrolling levels you just did, or the vertical shaft levels you just did. But then you do come across these stupid Eggplant Wizards. So you want to explain why they're a pain in the butt?
The Eggplant Wizards will, if they hit you with their magic, will turn you into an eggplant with legs. But the problem is that it doesn't wear off. You have to go find a hospital somewhere within the dungeon to get healed. 2 things. 1, you can't attack. You can't do anything but run. That's it. 2, it costs money to heal yourself from being an eggplant. 3, you get money by attacking and killing things. So if you don't have any money and you've been eggplanted so long, I mean, you can't do anything about it. So it's bad. And I died numerous times in the dungeons from getting eggplanted, and then just trying to find where the stupid hospital was, or the map, and unlocking the area so I knew where to go.
Like, but first off, why is there even a hospital in a dungeon? Explain that to me. Why is there a hospital in a damn labyrinth? They didn't have hospitals back then.
I don't know. Good coverage. They have good health coverage down there. I don't know. I mean, if you're working as an evil creature for someone, they probably should provide health care at some juncture. So maybe that's why. I don't know. It's part of the benefit package of being an eggplant wizard. I don't know.
I mean, low lighting, dangerous spikes, but Damn if you get the health insurance. It's pretty good healthcare package.
You know, I'm
Yeah.
fully covered down here. It's fine.
Yeah,
I could trip and roll an ankle and just be perfectly okay.
I can't stand those Eggplant Wizards. And half the time when it happened to me, especially early on when I was playing through this game or trying to play through the early stages, I just had myself die. I didn't even bother. Even if I somehow knew where the hospital was, odds are I didn't have the cash available to do it and to heal myself anyway. And it was brutal. Make it so that you turn an eggplant and you're slow to move or something, but make it so you can still attack. Taking away the ability to attack, you might as well just kill you, honestly, because the stages of the rooms in the dungeon are jam packed with enemies almost 90% of the time. And if you are eggplanted and you're far away from the hospital, which you usually are, navigating multiple screens to get there, it just feels like an impossible task. It really is a cheap way of killing you, honestly. I didn't care for that.
If you're going to take away the ability to attack, honestly, just make it temporary. Don't make it permanent. Like, don't make it like you have to go and figure the thing out. Just make it temporary. I don't know how many times the Grim Reaper guys that summon the little dudes when they see you. Yeah. When he stops dancing, they stop coming, right? So you're like, okay, do the same thing. Be like, I got hit once, or maybe try and get hit again so it reverses it. Kind of like getting toad casted on you. You can cast it again and it will take it away,
Two toads makes a right. Yeah.
Exactly. Two toads make a right. I like that. Where's the lip?
Yeah, it's a bizarre take, and I wonder if it's something they originally designed that way, or if it's just something that kind of slipped into the code and that's what they ran with. Because it is aggravating. The other thing with these dungeons is there are items you need to navigate the dungeon. There's a map, right? But the map is just one part of it. If you want to see the path you're taking, you need a pencil. Why do you need a pencil on the map? I don't know. But then you also want a torch.
Sketch it.
You sketch your way through, I guess. So it's not so much as a map as a blank piece of paper, I guess. And then you pick up the pencil and you can make a map. And then the torch, I think, shows your location on the map, if I'm not wrong. I think that was
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So the dungeons aren't very long, but you have to get these 3 items if you want to find where you're going and find all the secrets. I completely forgot about the cherubs or the angels that you save. You're right. They totally do help you with the boss battle. And that's the whole reason why you collect these hammer power-ups throughout the games, the stages, is you use those hammers to bust the statues and free the angels, which is something that doesn't feel very clear to you when you're first doing the first few stages.
Nothing about this game. Let me explain something to you about this goddamn game. So when you play a Nintendo in the 80s, and you're our age, you play Legend of Zelda. When you play Legend of Zelda, your life has hearts. So when you're low on life in Legend of Zelda and you bust open a pot or cut open a bush or whatever, or burn a bush, you get hearts out of it that heal you up. What's the first thing that you get when you shoot these snakes, Jake? You get hearts.
Yeah.
But does it heal you? No, it's money. You use it to buy things, not to heal yourself. And it feels like the wine is what heals you. You have to find jars or jugs or barrels of wine to heal yourself. And they are few and far between. There's not a lot. So this is one of those games that holds the moniker of NES hard very comfortably within itself.
At least the first few stages, yes, because your life meter is just a barest of slivers when you're playing this game. And you're right, the wine which heals you, which is pretty funny. Although, honestly, to be fair to you, if you're in a dungeon that is this difficult, I probably want a barrel of wine too to get my ass through it.
I'm drinking. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't think so. But it is weird that hearts is the currency for buying items. I don't get that at all. So, but there is shops in the game. I did realize that there was a trick. So there's shops and shopkeepers. Sometimes the prices are quite ridiculous. But there's a trick, there's a cheat you can do on, I think it's on controller 2. If you mash A and B, you actually have a chance of lowering the prices in shops. I did not realize that until way after time I beat it.
I did hear about that. I did hear that trick.
But
they don't explain. They don't explain a lot about this game. I'm sure if you read the instruction manual, which if we pulled that up, we could be like, oh, there's some information here. But I didn't realize that there were upgrades in the game, which you find and get pretty easily. But I actually know a streamer that played this game with no power-ups and beat it because he didn't know that you could get power-ups in this game. So he hard mode and he beat it. I mean, he
And he
was
beat it
beating his
without
head
them?
against the wall playing it. He did. Well, I think you have to get the wings because you have to fly. He did something. No, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that because I am falsifying this information because you have to have some of the power-ups to play through the end. But as far as I know, he made it to the end where you can get the power-ups to progress and do the last mission because you have to have those things, which I
Right.
think you get from the bosses anyways. Like you are granted those as
I
you
think
play.
so, yeah.
They're like the rewards from buying the bosses, but like upgrading the arrows, getting the fire arrows, the jump
Health
features,
bar.
all that
Yeah.
stuff. Health bar didn't get any of that. He
Yeah.
didn't realize that you can go and do all that stuff. So more power to you. It can be done. I wouldn't ever do it, but it can be done.
Like I've
But
I've
once you start
three-hearted runs
getting
of
the
Zelda
upgrades,
before, and it's been fine, but I would never try and do minimum life run in this game. It's ridiculous. But like I said,
dumb.
when you have more of a health bar, this game becomes a heck of a lot more forgiving. And that's why it's it's one of those rare games where it's super difficult in the beginning, but after you get the power-ups, it becomes more manageable. And I would say it's not even a hard game to beat. Like once I got past that first dungeon and you went to the side-scrolling sections, night and day different in terms of difficulty. You have a little bit more health. There's no stupid, false, falling down a shaft and dying instantly. Sure, there's the same enemies and there's a lot of them, but it's a lot easier to manage. And yeah, this is an interesting game for that. The items, the upgrades that you do, the weapon power ups and the life bar upgrades, those were tricky to get, from my understanding. Weren't they something tied to something like you have to grind a certain number of kills in a stage? Is that what it was?
The internet may burn me down for this, but I'm going to take a stab at it. There are mini games that I know of that are in each location where you would go inside
Right.
a house, and there's for I think for the power up, like to get stronger feature, it's like do this mission without getting hit or without dying or whatever, and it's these spinning blocks that just fly around you and
Right.
they're just flying at you and you got to figure out where they're at. And once you beat that, I think you have a selection where you can upgrade your bow and arrow becomes more powerful. I think there is also areas where you can get fire arrows and some other cool like upgrades for your bow and arrow as well too. But I believe the mini games is what allowed you to get more power. And I think there was stuff like you said. I think it's the same thing for the health, if I remember right too.
Yeah. And I think there's like potions you can get that will refill your health, and there's a barrel you can use and stock it with potions. So this is one of those
That
games where
barrel is a
yeah,
lifesaver.
yeah,
I
I
love
bet.
that barrel. That was the best 500 hearts I spent in that whole game.
And the thing is too is with that is if you have that and you die at a stage, you can get a password and use that password the next time you play. Like this game is live or die by the passwords. The passwords can literally make this game a hell of a lot easier. So if you are struggling trying to play this game, honestly, look up a password that gives you a barrel and a bunch of health refills. Although I gotta say, the password system is much like Metroid. For anybody who's done a password in Metroid, you're gonna just beat yourself trying to remember enter those letters in. The letters are so confusingly similar; it's gross. This has the same one, although they call it what do they call it, words of power or sacred words instead of passwords, something
I
stupid like
think
that.
so. Because
Yeah.
isn't Mike Tyson kind of the same thing? Like you have to put in the weird shapes and words to get into the other stuff.
No, Punch Out was like it's an 8-digit code, I think. No, 12-digit code,
Hmm.
but at least it's only 0 to 9. This one had like upper and lowercase letters, blue and green. It's awkward, but that's okay. Um,
Stupid.
yeah, it is stupid.
Nintendo,
Well, I mean
why?
that's the thing though,
Why?
right? Not
Why
every
do
game
you
had
hate?
battery
Why do you
backup, right?
hate your patrons so much, Nintendo? Why? Why do you hate us so much?
Actually, I do wonder if this was on the Famicom disk system. I'll have to look that up because the disk
Mm.
system in Japan actually let you save your progress on the discs, right? So a lot of the games that we have passwords for didn't have passwords over there because you could save to the disk. I'll have
Because
to
you can
check
save
that out
them.
later.
This game seems like this is the type of game that would require a save file to get through it, other than a password.
Yeah.
Its difficulty, the spike at the difficulty is literally at the beginning of the game. Like Jake said, if you can get through the first like 3 levels of the game, rest of it seems to fall into place fairly easily. The dungeons
Yeah.
are still tough, and there's still those stupid eggplant guys you got to fucking deal with, but the rest of the game just kind of really feels
Yeah.
better and better designed. Like, they should have started with this and then maybe put the towers at the end that you climb for that extra peak,
Yeah.
and then do the last little bit.
Like the dungeons, like you said before, the bosses are. I mean, they're hard, but they're not impossible. They're just not your usual
Right.
pattern type style of bosses. They're definitely not like Zelda or Metroid. They're
Or they
just
like to
sponges.
phase into the wall and come out the other side, and you don't expect it. You're like, "Where'd he go?" And then you get hit by a stray rock and you die because it phased into the room, and you were like, "Oh, that's stupid."
Is that what
So,
happened to you when
but
you
that
played
was
through this?
yeah. Yep. There was a point where I was like, "I'm kicking this guy's ass." I got underneath him and I was hitting him, and he's when you hit them, they, like, bounce, right?
Yeah.
They move around on the screen when you shoot them. And then he phased out, and I just was like, "Okay," because he literally went through the wall and then came out the other wall and hit me with I had, like, 1 hit left on he and him, and he hit me and he got me, and I was just like, "This is horseshit." There was a lot of rage that day.
Yeah. Oh, and this is the kind of games that would cause that. But I did watch this before this episode. I watched the speed run. Somebody was doing. I can't remember his name now. I feel bad, but he has a record for best ending run. So you're basically going through the game pretty much legit, just being really
Mhm.
godlike good at it. And how he took care of the first boss was he got right in its face and was shooting it. And then when it bounces high enough, you go underneath it and you just keep shooting and it can't touch you, or not as
Right.
often. And he just took it down like it was nothing. So I always
Yep.
love those kind of runs. Whereas beating a game legit, just you're so good at it. He was amazing. Every jump was just the vertical shaft was nothing. It's just wild to
Right.
see. Like this is a game where once you've mastered how to play it, you could run through this game. I mean, his record was 33 minutes. So this is
Yep.
not a very long game when you're good at it, I guess.
Right. Right.
Like
No,
I
there's
think when
definitely once you get the feel of it, you can turn and burn on this thing pretty quick.
yeah, 'cause I think my playthrough when I finally beat it, it took me 2.5 hours. I think. I mean, multiple sessions,
Mm.
but it was about 2.5 hours for me to beat through this game. I don't remember
Sounds
how long did it
sounds
take you to do
accurate
this
to
one?
mine.
Yeah.
That's about right, about 2.5 hours with multiple play sessions. I think we started it one day, and then we came back at it the next day from scratch and just got into the groove, and it took me about 2 hours, I'd say, to beat
Were you doing retro
it.
achievements for this one or no? It was just a playthrough?
No, I was just playing a standard. Yeah, it's just one of those games as a kid that you're like, I'm watching a playthrough and the goddamn the eggplant guy just shut up. This is this is one of those games when I was younger that everybody was playing, and I really wanted to beat it, but I was so bad at it as a kid. And as most of you know, I'm not a very patient person. So in games like this that take a lot of focus and patience in them that I've grown into as an adult. Yes, I'm more patient as an adult. Shocking. It's pretty rough. But I wanted to give it a shot. It's like this, and of course, Zelda, Super Mario 2, the original Metroid. Like, those games were games that I always wanted to finish, and I played through a good majority of my retro wish list. And this one just happened to be on there, and I don't know why. There's never been a day where I've been like, it's a great game, Kid Icarus. We should
Yeah.
totally. This is one of my all-time favorites. It was just like I couldn't beat it when I was younger, and I really just wanted to give it a shot. And I felt the same way about Mario 2, where it's just like I couldn't get it when I was younger, but we're gonna attack it while we're older, wiser, and more proficient, and have better hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, that's like what Sinister says, remember berries. Like nobody ever says, you remember that? Yeah, Kid Icarus. Yeah, let's play some Kid. No, nobody ever says let's play some Kid
Yeah.
Icarus. It's always like
You wanna come
the
over and
game you
play Kid
rented.
Icarus? No, no,
Yeah,
I don't.
no,
I'd
never.
rather get my teeth drilled, thank you.
Yeah, no. You as a kid, you visit your friend's place and they happen to have this cart. Why? Because somebody in their family bought it for them and they're stuck with it because they only got one game a year and they got Kid Icarus. I mean, they got lucky because it wasn't Superman because everyone loves Superman. But
Unless
yeah,
you're you're
it's a hard ass
self-imposed
game.
Superman.
It's like Superman on the NES is a Chemco classic. Everybody should play it, and then play Kid Icarus afterwards. I'd agree with you.
Dude.
There's certain games from the NES era that are kind of like that retro cred, the retro credibility, the games that you always should have
Mhm.
beaten. That's why we have that Sisyphean challenge we've been doing for 2 years
Right,
now. Where we pick those games where we know we should beat it because we had it, we rented it, or
right,
we just know it's possible. We've seen people do it, and we just feel like we should be able to do those games. This is one of those
right.
games that I think for me that was why
Especially when
Battletoads
you're
was
in a
picked.
retro
Right?
when you're in a retro podcast, you should probably be able to at least maybe not be great at it, but complete most of the game, if not all of it.
Right.
So
Well, and that's why I was so
always kind of
surprised
fun.
when I did beat it and I went through this game, how dramatically different the rest of the game is. I just thought
Yeah.
this game was the vertical shaft and nothing else. I really
Yep.
thought that's what it was, because
Yep.
Metroid had a lot of
But I
vertical
mean,
segments, right?
right, and look at like Bubble Bobble, which is literally nothing but falling down a shaft into each
Yeah,
kind of sectional room, right? This is how that felt to me. I love Bubble Bobble; it's one of my favorite kids game as a kid.
that's a
But
good one.
you know, you don't you don't know because you're not aware of it, and then it opens up into this what seems for a Nintendo game this vast world of oh my god, it's like an open world game. Oh my god, I'm outside now
Yeah,
doing this stuff before, and it just kind of changes the whole aspect of the game. It's kind of neat.
yeah. It's a neat game, and I am surprised more people don't talk about it. I know it's not on everybody's favorite top 10 NES games ever list, but I am surprised hasn't been more of it. There was never a
Mhm.
sequel on the NES for this game. I believe there was a 3DS game, Kid Icarus Uprising, I think it is, and I've never played
Is that
that
the
one.
3DS? I thought it was on the Wii because it's basically like a shmup. It's like
Is
but
it?
it's not
Okay.
top down. It's back forward, you're flying as Kid Icarus and you are going through and dodging all kinds of stuff. I don't know if it was I wanna say it was on one of the it's like a GameCube system or the Wii system because
Let me check.
it looks pretty good. Like, it looks pretty decent. It might have gone to, it might have eventually made itself to, like, DS or something like that, but I was pretty sure it was on one of the more newer systems of that time frame, because because they put Pit in Smash at one point, and I think it was in the
They
GameCube
did,
Smash.
yes.
Um, yeah, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, "Why would Pit like, you haven't seen Pit since 1986, like, where is this coming from?" At least Samus Aran has several games leading into Smash.
Yeah.
You expect Mario to be on there, like, even Sonic the Hedgehog, which was eventually purchased by Nintendo from Sega, was in the damn game. But why was Pit? Why is Pit in this game? Oh, because
Yeah.
he's got another game out called Uprising, and it's this like shoot 'em up, back flying kind of game.
So Kid Icarus Uprising was 3DS, and it wasn't on
Okay.
I think there might be a Switch version rumored, but yeah, it was just on 3DS. I remember this 3DS version because there was like what, 5 versions of the damn 3DS system, and
Right.
it ended with an analog stick on the right. But when it first came out, it didn't have that. So there was actually an add-on you could get for your 3DS to put an analog stick on the right, and Uprising did use that analog nub. So that's how I remember that
Mhm.
one. But yeah, I never did play it. But outside of that, you're right. It's Smash, and it is a weird choice for Smash. You also have Palutena. So the story, we never really talked about the story about this game. The story in Kid Icarus is the goddess Palutena is kidnapped by Medusa, and Pit is off to save her. So
Right.
Palutena is actually a character in Smash as well. So it's kind of interesting. They dug deep for some of those characters in early Smash games. I don't understand why, but I guess it
Bro,
can't all be Mario.
I'm
Right?
watching Uprising, and it's fricking Space Harrier is what it
Is
is. It's literally Space Harrier. Like,
yeah,
it's the same kind of concept where you're flying towards everything and you're shooting the stuff while you're flying at it. It's very, very like you fly around the screen, but it's like Star Fox, but
interesting.
your Pit instead
Your
of
Pit.
Star Fox. So it's quite interesting. It
Yeah.
looks like there's some aspects of like first person kind of play in it, but it feels a lot more, Space Harrier type kind of game. Has a
Yeah, it's
multiplayer mode
interesting.
too.
Like, yeah, I mean, even I look at other games that might be kind of close. Like Blaster Master is kind of that feels a lot has some similarities to Kid Icarus, kind of.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's interesting. There was never a sequel. I don't know. I wonder
Yeah.
how well this sold back in the day. Maybe it didn't sell so well. I guess.
It I don't know. It just seemed like everybody had a card of Kid Icarus, but never talked
Yeah,
about it. It was almost like the child that you just never wanted to speak of at the dinner table. But everybody knew about it. Everybody knew Kid Icarus, and that's I think, my member berries, as Sinistar would say, brought me back to the thought process of, I've seen this game at everybody's house when I was a kid growing up. I've played it. I've played it in the past. It's very difficult. Why haven't I beaten this yet? You'd think by now I
yeah,
would have gotten this one under control. I never even saw beyond, like you said, like the first 3 stages. I didn't I didn't know there was a
yeah.
side scrolling section. we didn't discover that until we played it on stream, and I was like, wow, there's like a whole nother. This feels like there's a whole nother game in this thing. So it's it's pretty cool.
Like
It's
if
not
you had told me there's a
it's not
map
bad.
in the game, dungeons and maps and pencil and like all that
Yeah,
kind of mechanics, I thought in stores and shops, I would have thought you're crazy
yeah,
that this is a different game you're talking
you're
about.
high.
I didn't even realize.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
not Kid Icarus.
you're
Not my
drinking a little
Kid
bit too much of
Icarus.
those barrels of wine.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yes,
Yeah, every kid growing
absolutely.
up had this and Seacross in my neighborhood. And the Seacross is another weird random NES game that a lot of people had. It was like a sci-fi motorcycle race game kind of thing.
Hmm,
But
okay.
I don't understand
I don't know if
why it
I
was
was
this
familiar with
and that. So it's interesting. I don't know. It's
I
I don't
mean,
know.
was there a lot of choices back in 1986? I mean, you had Mario, you had Duck Hunt, you had the games on the Power Pad, right? You had Metroid, but I mean, you had Zelda. But what else? I mean,
Well,
I'm sure
obviously.
I'm not saying there's like there were 5 games in 1986. Don't come burn me down, Twitter and YouTube, for that.
No, there's more than
But
that.
I
But
mean, but how many like were popular games that were out there? And it looks like I think I was wrong about these spinning blocks give you, I think, the life, and then you can go just find the arrows somewhere. There's something with the spinning blocks that give you the upgrades. I'm totally I got mover brain, so I'm sorry. I'm sorry, YouTube. I'm totally like new house brain right now. So
here,
I'm trying to.
you want some
If
bangers
we
from
had done this a
1986?
year, yeah, give me
Let
some
me give
bangers. Let's give me a
tag
list of
team
some of the
wrestling.
best games. That,
Remember tag team
okay,
wrestling?
yeah.
Chubby
But
Cherub.
is that the
That's
guy? Is that the like the ones that were the little pink dudes, and he had like what looked like a fish fin on his head,
I
and he
think
had the O
so.
mouth. Yeah.
There's the
Okay.
chibi style squat wrestlers, and you had two
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Let me see. Yeah, Ninja Kids. Oh, 1942. That you want to talk soundtracks of the year? 1942.
Banger.
That's a banger of a soundtrack.
Banger.
So you had Ghosts and Goblins, Gradius. You had
Okay.
games.
Okay.
You had
We go.
games.
Okay.
But you're right. I
Ghosts and
mean,
Goblins was
yeah,
another one that was in everybody's house that no one could finish.
nobody ever beat, or they didn't beat it the second loop. The second loop was probably
Yeah.
the decision factor for a lot of people. You're like, what now? I got to do this again? Fuck no.
Right. And honestly, that's another one that's on my list of like I feel like I should give that one an attempt after beating Super Ghouls and Goblins, which is honestly, I give that game a lot of shit, but Super Ghouls and Goblins is pretty fun. It's pretty cool once you figure it out.
Yeah, I've
But
seen
that
people play
last
through that
boss
one,
when
and
you
it
have
looked
to do
really awesome.
the second loop is ass. I'm channeling my inner Sinistar. The second loop is ass. It is terrible, but because you gotta use that stupid goddamn bracelet that you have to find, and, nothing else works, but if you play with the bow and arrow, which is usually my weapon of choice for the last boss because of the homing portion of
Right.
it, you just hide in the corner and hit him, so it's easy mode when you do it that way. Um, but yeah, I need to I think I need to fire up classic Ghouls and Ghosts and give that one a shot.
It's hard. That was one of the games I was debating for my Sisyphean game for this year, and because I was playing a fair bit of it, and there's infinite
Mhm.
continues in Ghosts and Goblins, so it's like Holy Diver and a few other games where it gives you that false sense of hope because you can keep picking up the stages as you go, or like keep continuing and keep trying. But it sucks because it's a game that when you hit a part where you just can't beat, or you're tired and you want to give up, but the game won't let you. It won't kill you. You
Yep,
have to physically step away from the game and walk away, and that's difficult because you feel like a
yep,
failure. You didn't just
yep,
die; you gave up. So
right,
that's the problem with those kinds of games. And Kid Icarus has that to a degree too, but at least there's passwords.
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So I don't know.
It's not a bad game. It really isn't.
No.
And if anybody gives it a lot of hate, you know, I mean, 1986, this has still got some good stuff. You got the healing springs. So there's like as you're progressing through the game, you can find what looks like sand, but it's a spring. It's a healing spring. And you can get your health back while you're running around. So if you can't find, you know, your wine or you don't have enough hearts to purchase the barrel, there are other ways to yeah, I feel like you're going to Total Wine and More just to survive this game. But I mean, there's other aspects that add to this game that make it fun and make it good. Like the Groucho nose creatures are stupid. Those little mini games suck because they'll eat you alive. But I don't know. This game is I'd give it a solid like 5 or 6 out of 10. It's not awful, but it's not the greatest game I've ever played. But I if challenged, I would be willing to maybe chase some achievements for this game if I
Yeah,
needed.
the 1985, 1986 NES titles, there's a lot of great stuff there, but you really do have to frame it as that was that was the era. That was the period. Early NES couldn't be more different than late era NES. Like looking at games from
Mhm,
85,
mhm.
86 versus 90, 89, 90, so dramatically different. Like I mean that's why I know you
Yep.
guys shit on Circus Charlie and that's fine. But it was an early ass NES game. It was also a gray box title. And like I keep
Mhm.
saying, well, look at that. You have different stages with different gameplay. How awesome is that? Kid Icarus is the same. You have multiple
Right.
stages. There's only 4 of them, or 4 worlds, but there's quite a bit of different gameplay, right? We didn't even there's a flying section at the end of the game for fuck's sakes, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
shops and different ways of gameplay in the same title, same cart. That wasn't that was unusual for early arcade games, right? Most arcade games was one single screen. That's all you got, right? You knew that game within
Mhm.
5 minutes of what you're playing. But seeing stuff like this is awesome. Like even the original Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, which is like a legendary platformer, all the stages look the same for the most part. I know there's underground and Bowser's castles, but it's the same damn game
Yeah.
and same
The
gameplay.
color palette, they basically like
Yeah,
when you get to the level that's a black sky, you're like, "Oh my god. We've never seen anything like this before."
yeah,
But it's the same damn thing. It
yeah,
really is. I mean, but what do you expect for what you have back there?
yeah.
This isn't Elden Ring. I'm sorry, I have to get my Elden Ring drop every episode. Um, it's my challenge for the remainder of the year. But,
Yeah.
it's got some good aspects. It's got an ice level in it, like everybody's goddamn mother had in an NES game. There's a freaking ice level in it, and fuck every ice level ever made.
Does it have ice
Because this
physics
one is
though? Like, was it slippery and
it
slidey?
does have, yep, there was
Why do
it's not
games
as
do that?
bad. It's not Mario too bad. It's not
Yeah,
Ice Climbers bad. But there is a little run ahead when you when you go too far too fast.
yeah,
I didn't find myself sliding off a lot of the platforms. I didn't It's not the worst ice level game in the world, but it is an ice level game. So,
yeah,
um, but it's a
yeah.
small
Mario 2 is
section
definitely
of
worse.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, oh, without question.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, and there's a lot of like positional stuff in this game too. Like I was saying, if you go just far enough and you fall in the first tower level and there's a platform still there, you can land on the
right.
platform and like half of your body will still be sticking out and you won't die. So you can climb back up it, but it has to be within,
Like
I
half
guess,
a
the
tile or
box, the hip,
something.
the
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So, and there's stuff where you're jumping on platforms to get to the next area, and it looks like you're phasing through it instead of on top of it. Like there's just some weird pixelation, it's probably some kind of, speedrunner trick on some of these things for what it looks like you can exploit it for whatever reason if you
yeah.
needed to, but um,
That's definitely the
it has its
engine.
faults.
Yeah, because like
Yeah.
Metroid
Yeah.
again, Metroid's the same engine, and one of the fun speed running tricks in Metroid is if you get yourself stuck in the bubble doors, and you can kind of warp your way up the map. So
Mhm.
that's what it feels like.
Mhm.
That's what it looks like to me when I look at glitches in Kid Icarus. So that's cool.
Right.
All right. Well, I mean, like I said, this is not a bad game. I think it's a great game to play. Just keep in mind of the era that it came out in. Like this is the early Nintendo era, and when you compare it to fucking even Circus Charlie, I think this is better in terms of the very vast amount of gameplay. The soundtrack is kind of catchy.
Yeah.
Good variety of
It's got some good
enemies.
tunes.
Yeah.
It's not a banger of a tune, but that
Yeah.
last level, the cool thing about this game is, when you beat a boss, you get a power up, right? I mean, you get power ups throughout the game when you go to the stores and the shops and whatnot. You find the arrow power ups. You get life levels up from doing tasks, or not tasks, but challenges in one of the rooms. Um, but you get a helmet, a big shield,
Shield. Yeah.
uh, super wings, and then like super arrows, right? But you never get to use them. Like at first, you're like, when do I get? Because it's like Zelda,
Yeah.
I got the Triforce and I found the hook shot, and now I'm going to use this to do whatever. But you never see that upgrade that you get from the boss. And I was like, why am I getting these things if I can't even use them? Well, it's because you use them at the end. At the
Yeah.
very last stage, it's a flying stage, and you get to use your wings, and you have your super shield and your helmet and your badass arrows, and
It's a
It's like
shmup,
R-Type.
basically.
It's a
Yeah.
shmup. Yeah, exactly. But it's not a brutal shmup. It's not like with Jesus Christ, it's not a bullet hell, but it is definitely a shmup
Yeah.
to the extent. And then you go and fight Medusa, which is a giant, sorry, spoilers, is a giant wall with one fucking eye in it and these snakes that come out every now and then. And and she screams at you, and you can use the shield to reflect the scream back at her and cause damage to it. It's a pretty cool little like it took us a couple tries to get the fight down, but if you can time your floats within certain spots, it's pretty easy to get her in the eyes. But it takes like Jesus Christ, it took like 100 shots, man. I felt like we were there for freaking ever trying to.
Yeah, the bosses in this game are definitely damage sponges, and it does take a lot of arrows, but at least they're not hard to figure out. And
Yeah,
this whole last stage, the shmup sequence, is actually really fun to do. Like you said, it's not that hard, especially when you compare it to what you've played already. And it's just another example of the game gets easier as you go, but it's different. At least it's ever changing, which I appreciate. So
right, right.
yeah, all right.
And I don't remember. Does this game have loops, or is it just like you can get the bat? I know there's like 3 or 4 different endings in this game that you can get if you do things correctly and you get all the right stuff. And
Yeah,
I
you
think
get
there
the
are loops because there's a shop that's at the very beginning of the first stage that when you walk into it when you first play, there's nothing in there. But if you go in during a second loop playthrough, there's like the best upgraded arrows that you can get in the entire
oh
game. You
really?
have to finish the game to go back and get it. It's an achievement. I was looking it up. You I may or may not be wrong about that. I thought I'd read that somewhere. Um, because yeah, you go in this room and there's nothing in there when you first start the game, but when you play it a second time and you go through, then there's a guy who's like, "Oh, you get like the purple arrows or some shit that are like the best arrows in the
Like
game."
I know that some of the rooms are empty if you don't get enough kills in the stage. I think it was. That's the thing with this game.
Mm,
They don't, like we said before. They don't explain a goddamn thing how to play this game. I
right.
don't even know what the manual looks like. I should look it up. But this is one of those games where you just, I don't know how anybody figured this shit out as a kid. I really don't. I know there's Nintendo's
No.
hotline at some point later on, but those early games, man, if you're stuck, how the hell do you figure this stuff out? It's quite brutal.
I feel like every game has a graveyard in 1986 too, by the way. I really do. It's just funny because I'm watching a long play of this game through it. I'm remembering all these stages, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's like a graveyard in here too. This
Oh
looks
yeah.
like the graveyard from Ghouls and Ghosts and or Ghouls and Goblins, whatever they called it on the Super Nintendo, and Zelda. I mean, it looks like all the same kind of stuff. So it's pretty neat. I think Metroid was the only one that didn't have like a genuine graveyard in there, but I'm sure something was dead that you walked over in that
I'm
game.
sure, yeah, the player. But yeah, that's the tropes,
Stupid.
right? Graveyard, ice
Right.
level, desert, forest, underground cave. It's the same
Mhm.
tropes that got reused all the damn time. The only thing this
Right.
doesn't have, it doesn't have a water level, which is probably for the best, but it doesn't have an underwater
Right.
level.
You
Yeah,
could consider the flying level almost a water level because it
that's
moves
true.
like you're in water, essentially. I
Yeah,
mean, if you think of it that way.
yeah.
So,
I don't know. All right. Well, I guess we can wrap it up. But again, just to finish off with, definitely a game I think everybody should play. If you're an NES fan, this is something you should have at least try and give it at least past the first world, because that dungeon gameplay is something quite unique to see, and it just feels weird playing dungeon, but from the 2D angle, even though it feels like
mhm.
Zelda. It's interesting. All
It's
right.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely give it a shy. Don't be too afraid of it. It once you get the groove and you feel it out and you get past the more regular annoying stuff. It's not like Battletoads where you're literally kicking your ass every single day trying to get through the stupid
Oh
game.
yeah.
It's it's like you're like, all right, I got it figured out, and then you get past that climbing, and then it's literally smooth sailings from there. I think we beat the last 2 stages fairly quickly because I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, that's all this makes sense to me. So
Yeah.
it's a good game.
Yep. All right. Chard, tell folks where they can find you.
Over on Twitch, finishing up as of I don't know. I might be done with it by the time we release this thing. So I was playing Super Mario RPG, and I think I'm towards the end of it, trying to badge it.
You're close. Yeah.
Um, I'm and then I don't know. I'm doing a playthrough of Final Fantasy 16. I'll probably still be playing that when we get this thing released. So if you haven't come over to YouTube and seen my playthrough of Final Fantasy 16, I am doing them in 2 to 3 hour spurts. So I know that's a lot of time for some people who don't have that kind of time in their day, but it's a long game and there's a lot to it. So come check that out. It is currently, as stands, my game of the year. Until Sea of Stars comes out, which will probably be the only contender that goes up against Final Fantasy 16. So come and check me out on Twitch. You can find me here with my good friends at Press Me to Cancel, of course, and moving into my new house. So we're going to be August and September is going to be a crazy 2 months. So buckle up.
Yeah, it's gonna be a wild time. And I'm Sick Jake. You can find me. I don't even want to say Twitter anymore because that place is a trash fire. And maybe I'll be dead by the time this episode comes out. I don't know. I don't want to use Threads. I use TikTok. You can find me on TikTok. And actually, speaking of TikTok, we are looking at expanding our social media a bit more with clips in the podcast. We've got a workflow for that. So if you don't mind checking us out on TikTok and Instagram, you'll find Press B to Cancel there. And of course, check our Discord. Links are on pressbtocancel.com. And some good stuff. I was going to also shout out that we occasionally stream live on YouTube outside the podcast. Wolf has been playing a couple games. He did his Wheel of Pain punishment for not doing a Sisyphean game last year. He played a couple hours of Bubsy 3D. It's a great time. Great watch for viewers. Rough. Not so much for him. Yeah, that game was rough. And then he also did
doesn't count. It doesn't count because we only went 1 minute and 59 seconds. An hour and 59 minutes. He was mere seconds short of hitting that 2-hour mark that he was drafted.
Well, we gotta be careful setting that rule and that standard because a bunch of us are going to be doing that Wheel of Pain next year. So if the rule is Doom, 2 hours even, we need an official Guinness Book of World Records timer. I don't know.
Doom 3 is awful. See. Terrible game.
There's some games I'm going to put in that wheel that are really good. I'm just watching Wolf play some of these 3D platformers. Like he's playing Croc as well, which actually looks like a good one. But some of those
he said it was better than Bubsy.
Well,
but I think
low bar is low.
Now. Yeah. So your expectations are where they're at, right?
Yeah. So. But anyway, feel free to check us out, pressbtocancel.com, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you.
Actually, hold on. Don't forget, Jake and I we're still doing our 100. We're not going to do it today because he and I are just trying to kind of weave this together. But stop in every Friday and hang out with us and listen to us come up with our top 100. We've got a pretty good list going through pretty soon, and I think towards the end of this year, we're actually going to have a full-fledged episode to discuss the top 100s that we believe need to be on that list.
Might be 2.
Right. And we got a lot of exciting episodes coming up that we already have in the works, and you're going to see some more pre-recorded stuff just for the next couple months as Jake and I get settled into our new digs. Separate houses. We're not moving in together.
No.
I know that's the question, but we're living separately.
I could never live in a landlocked state that Chard does. It just does not work. That's you know water there, right?
Just a giant ocean next door, right?
All right, guys. Have a good night.